I'm not gonna waste your time. This is the step-by-step, no BS guide to get to 95 miles an hour in 12 months. Just like I did when I was 16, throwing 78 miles an hour, and 16 months later, I was throwing 95 plus. Let's get in. Step 0 is actually take time to train. When I was a 16-year-old throwing 78 miles an hour and I wanted to get to 95 plus, what I did was I actually took 16 months off from playing. Now, why did I do this? Well, when you're playing and you're pitching all the time, it's really difficult to make velocity gains because the priority becomes playing. And so sometimes you might be like, oh, I'm not gonna train as hard so that I'm ready for my game. If you have a game coming up on Saturday, right, you're not gonna be training hard all throughout the week because you might be tired or you might be sore for the game. And so you're not able to push your body, which is required to get a lot of velocity gains because you're playing. So what did I do? Instead of throwing 100 pitches on the weekend on a Saturday, I would do a pull down day. Instead of doing a mid-week bullpen day, I would do a plyo velo. And so I was doing high CNS type throwing instead of actually playing in games. And they have similar stimulus, but these high CNS throwing days are optimized to increase velocity. And when you're playing, I mean, you're competing. It's not optimized for velocity development. You might be throwing 100 pitches where your first 10 might be a true max effort, and then the next 90 is more just like, okay, you're just competing, you're in the game. It's not really optimized for pitching development. And this is why the first step is, if you're really serious about getting to 95 plus and you're not even close to it yet, you need to take some time to train. And it doesn't have to be as drastic as me, where I took 16 months off from playing, but you do need to make this your #1 focus. And you can't expect to play a full season and be playing 2-3 times a week and then get to 95 plus. The old saying is like, oh, velocity will come. I think that is absolute BS. Because what's the alternative? Are you just gonna wait around and hopefully you're a naturally talented guy who throws 95 plus? Or are you actually gonna go out and make sure that you give yourself the best chance to be 95 plus? That's the route that I took because I knew that I probably wasn't genetically gifted enough to throw 95 plus without any type of training. See the guys that you see who, never really train, they play all the time, they're doing all these showcases and still get up to 95 plus. I mean, genetics play a large role in baseball. It is just a brutal fact. And a lot of these guys might have really good genetics. It is what it is. It's an unfair game, but it's how we respond to it, right? And so if you're not a genetically gifted guy, just like I wasn't, then you need to go out and go train and really put your focus into velocity development. There's something toward when you put all your mental energy into one thing, the chances of you achieving it become way greater. If you're thinking about, oh, I need to go out and compete, play games, and I'm trying to do development, your focus is just shifted. There's too many things that you're thinking of and your chances of actually achieving any of them will be nil. Okay, so now you're taking the time to train. So that's step 0. All right, so step 1 is to actually pick your throwing program. And the kind of throwing that I recommend is high CNS type throwing. When I was going from 78 to 96 miles an hour, I did pull downs 1 time a week, and I did either a mound velo or plyo velo 1 more time in that week. And so why do I recommend high CNS type throwing? Well, there's this principle called the SAID principle, which is the specific adaptations to impose demands. Basically, the body responds to what it's exposed to, right? And so, as cliche as it is, if you want to throw harder, then you need to throw hard and you got to throw hard often, right? Because if you're throwing at low intent, there's no stimulus, there's no need for the body to start throwing hard, right? But if you're doing pull downs where you're able to throw even harder than you can off the mound, then that's giving the body the stimulus. It's telling the body, okay, like we need to adapt to be able to throw at this intent, right? And throw at these velocities. When I was throwing 96 miles an hour, I was able to pull down low hundreds, 101, 102. And so I'm throwing 102, 101. And then my arm, all my body, all these muscles, the central nervous system have to adapt to be able to handle that. Now what happens on the mound? Well, now I have those adaptations which help me throw hard. Okay, and it's a lot more complicated than that, but that's just a really simple way of thinking about it. Another reason why I love high CNS type throwing is because it teaches the central nervous system, the muscles, the tendons, that are responsible for throwing hard to really activate. And so when you're throwing at max effort off the mound or something like that, then it's just teaching your central nervous system, your muscles and tendons to really turn on when it's needed to throw hard. Okay, so like, again, if you're just throwing it low intent, then it's never really training your body to be able to move quick and throw hard. And so I'm a big believer in, okay, if you're trying to throw hard, then you gotta throw hard often. Another reason why is because you can track your progress. And this is one of the biggest and most underrated reasons why I would do a high CNS type throwing, is because if you're doing pull downs, right, you can just try to beat your record every single week. And that's what I did when I was trying to get to 95, 96 was, okay, I pulled down today, all right, I'm at 85. All right, well, next week, come around, I'm trying to throw 86, 87, bang. And I'm trying to gradually increase. And you can really track your progress. And when you're seeing progress, and when you're seeing these numbers increase, that's when a lot of this stuff becomes fun, because it becomes a game, right? It's not like, oh, you're just plateaued at 78, 80, and you want to try to get 95, and it's this huge goal that you feel like you can't even get to it. No, it's like, okay, I'm at 78 right now. Let's try to get to 79. Let's try to get 80, and just stack that. And I promise you, if you keep stacking it, you're gonna make massive amounts of progress, because that's what I did. You know, that's all I did. I tried to stack progress. And velocity gains aren't linear. They're not gonna just go like this, where it's like, oh, I went from 78 to 96. It's not like that. It's more like this. So you start out, you plateau, bang, you get a spike. Maybe 3 weeks of training in, you get a spike. And then you're training. And a lot of times in these training periods, you can get a decrease because you're getting a lot of workload in your body, right? And so decrease, but then you get another spike, maybe after a deload, maybe after you rest up, and then you get some really good sleep, you hydrate, all of this stuff, you feel really good one day, bang, spike. And this is how you get to 96. Okay, and so it's not linear, it's more of like a decline spike type thing. But yeah, that's what I would do for the throwing program. Okay, so now you have your throwing program. What's next? Step 2 is lifting, and this is how I'd progress my lifting. Firstly, work on strength. Build a really good strength base. Now, what does this mean? I kind of like to get the markers of, okay, if you can squat 2 times your body weight, you can deadlift 2 times your body weight, or trap bar 2.5 times your body weight. And then if you can bench, you know, your body weight, and you can do like 10 pull-ups, then that's a pretty good strength base. You're pretty strong. You're strong enough to throw at a high velocity, right? Because in the pitching delivery, everything happens in milliseconds. It's not about how strong you are, it's about how much force you can produce in those milliseconds that you're in the pitching delivery. And so once you're at a base level of strength, gaining more strength doesn't really help you that much. Going from like a 400-pound squat to 600-pound squat isn't gonna help you as much. So once you built that strength base, you built this, how do you continue to go up? Well, this is where rate of force development, speed type training, impulse type training comes in. But for the majority of your journey, it should be a lot of just progressive overload, trying to build strength. Because chances are, if you're throwing pretty slow, then you don't have the strength base to throw hard. Being able to squat 2 times body weight, deadlift 2.5, that's no joke. You gotta be pretty strong. And so for the majority of the time that I was, you know, at least up to 90 miles an hour, I was just progressively overloading and like gaining as much strength as I could. Progressive overload basically means, just like the pull downs, you're trying to add more weight every single week. And so if I started off with a squat of 135 pounds, then I'm trying to get to 140 the next week. And then the next week I'm trying to do 145, and then so on, right? When I was throwing 95, 96, I was able to squat, you know, over 400 pounds, deadlift over 600 pounds. Like, I was a strong guy, and I feel like that's pretty necessary for guys who aren't very like genetically gifted, which is, okay, we need to build a really good strength base. We want to be really strong. And so that would be the first step. And don't overcomplicate your lifting program. Really, just don't. Like, I would only just do my compound exercises. For me, I did the 5x5 program, which was 5 sets of 5, squat, deadlift, bench, pull-ups, or some type of row, and I'll just try to add weight every single week. That was it. I really hate these like baseball specific lifting programs, especially for guys who are like novices, right? You're not very strong. Like, you don't really need all these fancy stuff to really make gains. It's like, Stick to the bread and butter so you don't get confused or overthink, and then just hammer that, progressively overload that, get as strong as you possibly can. Now, when you build a strength base, this is how you continue to go forward with the lifting, is rate of force development and speed impulse type training. Now, this is kind of where, a lot of plyometrics come into play, a lot of banded work, overcoming ISOs, all of this stuff that actually help you tap into the strength that you built. And so if you think about your strength like this, you have all of that strength. And so in the pitching delivery, right, you're not able to tap into all of it because, if you're squatting, it's like, you have all of this time. But in the pitching delivery, it's bang, bang, it's milliseconds. And so a lot of people can't really tap into all of this. And so the speed impulse type training stuff is meant for that, is to be able to tap into more of this, okay? A lot of people can only tap into this, like me right now, I can only tap into a little bit of that, but I'm trying to increase that with the speed impulse type training, learning to turn on my muscles, my tendons, central nervous system really quick so that I can incorporate that in my pitching delivery. And so that's kind of how I'd progress. Start with strength, progressively overload, build all of that strength, and then you can start to learn to tap into that with speed impulse type training. Now, the one regret that I have when I was going through my journey was not working on mobility, and mobility is really, really huge, okay? And so I would always be doing mobility with this. Mobility, yes, increases VLOA and also just makes you feel overall good, And so how I would do mobility is weighted stretching, stretch strength type stuff where you have weights, and instead of just doing like a normal stretch, like if you're trying to touch your toes right here, I would grab weights in each hand and then it would like pull you into deeper positions. That's kind of what really worked for me. Static stretching I used to do a lot, but then when I incorporated like weights in my stretching, I started getting a lot of mobility. And so that's kind of what I would do in terms of mobility. Okay, so step 3 is mechanics. Now, we're building the frame. This is all like building the frame to throw hard, right? We're not actually really like throwing too hard off the mound yet. Like pull downs, that's not mound velocity. All this lifting, it's building the body to be able to produce enough force to be able to throw hard, but mound mechanics and pitching mechanics on the mound is a separate beast. Like there are so many intricate details that go into throwing hard off the mound. That's why you get guys who can throw, 100 pull downs, but only throw 90 off the mound, and so you need to be able to convert all of this stuff onto the mound, and that's where pitching mechanics, the biomechanics of everything come in. Now, this is a little bit more complicated. The best way to do this is to work with a coach who really knows what they're talking about to point you in the right direction. Because with mechanics, there's not a set rule of things of like, okay, this, and you have perfect mechanics. No, it's like, if you look at the big leaguers, the guys who throw 100, all of them throw differently. So that's what makes it difficult. Now, there are some underlying principles for pitching mechanics that you can follow. But again, it's very, very individualized, okay? And so this is something that I'm not gonna touch on very much, but for this, if you can, get a coach who knows what they're talking about, that has a track record, right, of throwing hard themselves, but also coaching other people to throw hard. Because this stuff is the easy part. Like pulling down hard and lifting heavy and all of this stuff, that's the easy part. Now, converting that onto the mound is a separate beast. When I was going through my journey, I had to go out and get expert guidance from some of the best guys. Now, now looking back, my coaches, these coaches are the pitching coordinators of the Mets, the Dodgers, like big time guys who help me with my mechanics, right? And so that's kind of what I would say about the mechanical part. As soon as you build the frame, then you have to be able to convert that onto the mound. Now, I will touch on a little bit of the underlying principles of the pitching delivery. And so Firstly, with the leg lift, you need to shift your weight just a little bit. So it can be very aggressive like this. Some people are able to be right there. Some people like me are a little bit subtle. I'm right here, and then I shift it very subtly, but you need to get your weight going forward just a little bit. Now, what's after that? Well, you need back leg drop or pulse or load. So some people can drift heavily, and then it's more of like a pulse where they're in and out of their back leg. Some people like me, it's more like a load. So it's bang, I'm really getting into that back leg. One thing that I noticed was that if you're a really quick guy, twitchy guy, this might work well where you're just in and out of it. And you can tap into a lot of the force even through that. But for me, again, I'm not able to tap into it very well. And so I need a little bit more time to get that peak force production, right? And so it's not just vertically though, it has to be horizontally. It has to be down and out. Okay, that's the direction we're going for. So it's down and out. It's like here. If it's right here, then you're just stuck over the rubber and there's no momentum. There's no energy going forward toward the target, which is just gonna tank our velocity. Now that we're here, we wanna create separation, right? And so the back pelvis, the back leg is gonna do half the work, and then the lead leg does the other half. And now that pops the pelvis open. The lead leg has to stop all of this energy and transfer it up so that the trunk can catapult forward. If you get some of those lower body stuff correct, then you should be pretty good. As far as the upper body, all I kind of like to think about is just staying close. You want to stay really quiet with the upper body and just stay close. The arm action is a different beast, but in general, right? Your lower body is producing a lot of the force, your upper body is very quiet, you relax, relax. As soon as the lead leg hits, that's when you explode. This whole time you need to be relaxed and stay closed and only fire when your lead leg hits. And so that's kind of what I would say about mechanics. Those are kind of like the underlying things that have to kind of stay true for everyone for them to throw hard. Now, step 4 is, a boring step, but this is just repeat. And you got to repeat this for 12 months. And this is probably the most important step, is that you need to stay consistent with your training and you need to stack really good days, right? For you to be able to, develop crazy amounts of strength. Well, you have to be in the gym 3-4 times a week to be able to pull down really hard. Then you have to be pulling down once a week for a very long time, right? For your mechanics to become really efficient and you're able to transfer all of this onto the mountain, well, you have to be working on that pretty much daily. This is what sets apart the people who actually throw 95 and those who don't, which is you need to repeat for like 12 months. And this is the most important part, because what do the 99% do? They just quit after a month or something, right? They hit a plateau, they're like, nah, you know what? I don't like this, F this, I'm not doing this anymore. Now the 1% keep going, right? The 1% just keep going, they just keep grinding, they keep throwing, they keep lifting, they're super consistent with their training. And one thing I would say is program hopping. Once you start to plateau, don't just go and do another program. Like, all these programs are probably gonna work, right? But you're just not giving it enough time. And so you need to be patient and consistent with it. If you're going from program to program, okay, I'm gonna do this weighted ball program, no, now I'm gonna do this long toss, no, now I'm gonna, you're never actually making progress and you're never actually giving it time, to see that progress. And so you need to be able to repeat all of this stuff and be consistent for at least 12 months for you to even have a shot at throwing 95 miles an hour. Now, this was a lot of information, and this is something that you can go out and take and implement it into your own training and try to get to 95 miles an hour. That's a very viable option. But if this is something you need help with and you need someone to help with all of this stuff, I co-founded a company called The Pitcher Lab, which is exactly that. We help guys to get to the next level by increasing pitching velocity. We've had a bunch of guys throw 95 plus. And if that's something that interests you, first link in the description. You can book a call with me personally, and I'll see you there.